The message arrived at dawn, though dawn was a relative term aboard the UNS Archimedes. The ship's internal chronometers adjusted for every time zone represented in her crew, producing a perpetual compromise of gray-gold light. Captain Mira Solis stood before the central display as the transmission unfurled like a wound in space. It was not a call. It was a decree. A column of blue fire coalesced into the symbol of the Galactic Council, 12 concentric rings rotating around an unreadable sigil. Then came the voice, multilayered, distorted, the sound of bureaucracy amplified to the edge of godhood. To the species designated Homo sapiens, provisional members of the Galactic Concord, tribute is due. The words rippled through the command deck. Engineers stopped mid-task. Even the hum of the environmental systems seemed to hesitate. Mira folded her arms, posture precise, dark eyes reflecting the holographic glow. "Put it on all channels," she said quietly. "If we're being insulted, let it be a public affair." From the navigation pit, Ravi Deshmukh muttered, without looking up, "At least they're punctual. Only 3 years since first contact, an impressive turnaround for interstellar extortion." Ravi was the ship's chief systems engineer, and the closest thing to a philosopher aboard. He saw mechanical patterns everywhere, circuits, supply chains, human behavior. Everything had rules. Even rebellion. The projection expanded, showing a panoramic chamber filled with alien delegates. Carapace, luminous, scaled, vaporous. The Council's high arbiter, a species resembling a sculpture of glass and lightning, leaned forward. By decree of the 42nd mandate, 10% of your planetary resources are hereby requisitioned for galactic stability. Alternatively, you may provide 1 billion labor units for integration. Compliance guarantees protection and prosperity. Mira exhaled slowly. Protection from what, I wonder? Behind her, Aiko Tanaka, xenolinguist, dreamer, and chronic idealist, scribbled notes onto her tablet even as her lips twitched with disbelief. "Their phrasing's ritualistic," she murmured. "Every conquered species probably gets the same speech. It's practically a religious text. Sounds more like a protection racket," Ravi replied. "Except the mob at least pretends you'll get something in return." From the helm, Dante Cruz chuckled. "So we pay or we play slave. Real charming first impression. Anyone else missed the days when our biggest worry was spam emails from Nigerian princes." Aiko glanced up. "You think this is funny?" "I think it's familiar," Dante said, lounging back. "Someone bigger shows up, demands your lunch money. The trick's convincing them you taste bad." Mira turned from the display. "Enough. Open a channel to Earth Command." Minutes later, the Archimedes briefing room flickered with holographic faces. Leaders from every major nation, scientists, diplomats, and one harried UN Secretary-General who looked as though sleep had been outlawed. The argument began instantly. Compliance ensures safety. Defiance means annihilation. Stalling might buy time. Words clashed like shrapnel. Mira stood at the edge of the holographic table, watching humanity's representatives fracture into predictable camps. She admired their passion, but she could already see the grid forming in Ravi's mind, the algorithm of fear, pride, and self-preservation. "They don't understand the scale," he whispered beside her. "Those ships could glass the moon before we finish debating tax structures." Aiko's voice was gentler. "Maybe they don't want to destroy us. Every species they absorbed had a choice." "Choice implies equality," Ravi said. "This is coercion in a ceremonial wrapper." Myra's jaw tightened. "Then what's the alternative?" From the back of the room, Dante raised a hand lazily. "We could just tell them to shove it." Mira shot him a glare sharp enough to cauterize. "I'm looking for practical solutions, Lieutenant." "Captain, that is practical," he said, grin unbroken. "We can't outgun them, can't outnumber them, but we can definitely out-crazy them. Tell them no. See what happens." The room quieted. Even the holographic murmurs from Earth stilled. Aiko laughed first, soft, incredulous. "We'd be wiped out." "Maybe," Dante said, "but for one brief, glorious moment, they'd have to process the idea that someone told them no. When's the last time you think that happened?" Ravi rubbed his temples. "You want to wage psychological warfare through sass?" Worked on my boarding school headmaster. Mira found herself fighting a smile. It was absurd, childish, dangerous, and yet there was something in Dante's flippant suggestion that resonated with the quiet defiance coiled in her chest. Humanity had spent millennia crawling out from under its own tyrannies. Bending the knee to another felt like regression. Aiko caught her expression. Captain? Mira looked at the holographic Earth officials, still frozen in debate. Transmitters ready? Ravi hesitated. You're not serious. Deadly. She stepped toward the console, hands steady. Patch me through to the council frequency. Across half a galaxy, in the council's grand chamber, the assembly of ancient species reconvened. Their screens shimmer with the emblem of a young civilization still considered primitive by their standards. Expectation hummed through the air like static. Myra's voice came clear and crisp across the interstellar void. This is Captain Mira Solis of the United Nations Starship Archimedes, representative of the Terran people. We have received your tribute order. Our response follows. She nodded at Aiko. The linguist's fingers danced over the console. A single word blinked into existence on every council display, translated across thousands of languages and frequencies with perfect clarity. No, for a moment, the universe forgot how to breathe. The High Arbiter's crystalline body flickered in disbelief. Delegates exchanged nervous ultraviolet signals. Someone chittered in outrage. Another fainted into its nutrient tank. The chamber's acoustics amplified the confusion until it became a physical vibration. On the Archimedes, silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Then Dante leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. Well, he said cheerfully, that ought to make the morning headlines. Aiko buried her face in her palms. We've just declared war on an interstellar empire. Ravi stared at the single glowing word still hovering above the console. Or we've just redefined diplomacy. Mira turned away from the screen, expression unreadable. Her reflection in the viewport showed the infinite dark of space, pricked with stars, each one a potential enemy or a future ally. Prepare for their response, she said. Whatever comes next, we face it on our feet. Outside, the holographic emblem of the council shattered into static. The galaxy had received humanity's first official message. It was short, simple, and catastrophically clear. The council's reply came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after humanity's single defiant word echoed across the stars, the UNS Archimedes intercepted a transmission so vast it drowned every frequency within Sol's reach. A voice like grinding glass filled the command deck. Species Homo sapiens. You have violated Mandate 42. Enforcement protocol is authorized. Prepare for correction. The holographic map bloomed with red markers. Hundreds of ships, each the size of small continents, emerged from folded space at the system's edge. The Galactic Council had arrived. Captain Mira Solis didn't flinch. She had expected retribution, just not so soon. Around her, the bridge pulsed with organized panic. Comms officers shouting coordinates, engineers rerouting power, scientists arguing about gravitational signatures. Report, Mira said. Ravi Deshmukh, his usual calm cracking at the edges, scanned the data stream. Fleet composition. 64 primary vessels, 3 capital carriers, several hundred drones. Power readings off the scale. They're not here to negotiate. Then we don't negotiate, Mira replied. Dante Cruz, lounging in the pilot's chair as though the universe weren't about to end, cocked an eyebrow. Do we fight or just moon them from orbit? Whichever causes more confusion, Mira said. Ravi turned sharply. Captain, I'm not joking, Mr. Deshmukh, she interrupted. Confusion is our ally. If we can't match their firepower, we'll match their unpredictability. Aiko Tanaka entered, hair unkempt, eyes bright with sleepless energy. Captain, I've been monitoring their internal transmissions. They're arguing. Arguing? Yes. Some council factions want to annihilate us immediately. Others insist on a public trial. Our defiance embarrassed them. They need to make an example, but they can't agree how. Dante grinned. Good. Maybe they'll sue us instead of shooting. The first engagement shattered that hope. A council drone fleet breached Neptune's orbit, sleek and silent, black as oil. Their weapons hummed with sterile precision. Humanity's defense network, an improvisation of repurposed mining lasers and reconfigured satellites. Open fire. The void erupted in strobing light. Direct hit on Drone 47, shouted technician. Ravi's hands flew over his console. They're adapting. Every time we alter our frequency, they recalibrate within seconds. Then alter faster, Mira said. He gave her a look that bordered on a grin. Captain, physics of speed limits. Humans don't, she said. Break them. For the next 48 hours, Earth's defense grid became a living experiment in chaos. Ravi commandeered mining rigs, converting their drills into railguns. Civilian AIs were conscripted into cyber warfare. Children on Earth reprogrammed their gaming drones to deliver decoy signals. Across the world, billions participated, scientists, hackers, mechanics, dreamers, each contributing in the only way they knew, creatively. The Council's data analysts were baffled. Humanity didn't fight like a species at war. They fought like a swarm of improvisers, rewriting the rules mid-conflict. Aiko monitored intercepted alien chatter and laughed despite herself. They're calling us a narratively unstable species. Apparently, our strategies don't conform to expected patterns. Dante smirked. We confuse them by accident. Imagine if we tried on purpose. On the fourth day, the Council's fleet advanced toward Mars. Mira ordered the Archimedes to intercept. The ship trembled as it entered the battle line, tiny among giants. Drones screamed past, energy beams slicing the void. Ravi's modified shielding flickered, caught between genius and collapse. Aiko's fingers danced over the linguistics console, broadcasting an endless stream of contradictory signals. Distress calls, invitations to negotiate, fragments of Earth poetry. They're trying to interpret us, she said breathlessly. Every time they think they've decoded our language, I change the syntax. Poetic warfare, Dante muttered. Didn't know that was a thing. Everything's a thing if you make it one, Aiko replied. The Archimedes dodged another barrage. A railgun blast from Phobos tore through a council drone, scattering molten shards across space. Mira allowed herself one heartbeat of pride. Then the tactical display flashed crimson. Incoming energy spike, capital carrier, Ravi warned. They've locked onto us. Brace. A beam of pure light struck the ship. System screamed. Gravity inverted, then failed entirely. For one surreal instant, Mira saw her crew floating in silence, expressions caught between terror and awe. Then power returned. The bridge light stabilized. Status. Shields at 40%, Ravi said, voice shaking. We lost secondary life support and the starboard array, but we're still flying. Dante let out a low whistle. Guess their god beam blinked first. Mira turned to Aiko. Any progress on communication? Aiko's screen flickered. They're sending us something. Not words. A pattern. The hologram formed, a lattice of symbols, geometric and recursive. Aiko frowned. It's a warning. They're giving us one final chance to surrender. And if we don't... Mira asked. Total eradication. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Dante didn't crack a joke. Mira stared at the alien sigil until its light burned in her vision. Then she said, Transmit reply. Aiko hesitated. What should I say? Not no this time. Ravi looked up. Captain? Say nothing. Just send them the file I uploaded this morning. Aiko glanced at the data tag and blinked. That's Captain, that's a song. Exactly, Mira said. Moments later, across the galactic network, the Council's command channels were flooded with the sound of Bohemian Rhapsody. For 30 confusing minutes, the enemy fleet halted. Their automated systems attempted to parse the lyrics, to locate hidden codes or strategic meaning. They found none, yet the data contagion lingered, replicating through translation protocols, corrupting navigation matrices. Ravi stared at his monitors, incredulous. Captain, they've stopped firing. Aiko laughed aloud. Their language AIs are trying to interpret the emotional subtext. They can't process metaphors that contradict themselves. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Dante sang under his breath. Guess they're stuck in a landslide. Mira almost smiled. Good. Let's keep them guessing. For 2 days, humanity regrouped. Losses were heavy, but not total. The Archimedes limped into orbit around Luna to coordinate the next phase of defense. In every corner of the ship, exhaustion and grim pride mingled. Ravi worked without sleep, inventing new weapons from scrap and superstition. Aiko began documenting alien confusion, seeing in it the fragile beginnings of understanding. Dante led morale drills that somehow involved karaoke and zero-G dodgeball. When Mira passed through the corridors, crew members saluted with fierce, unspoken loyalty. She saw in their faces what she had always known about humanity, fragility wrapped around an unbreakable core. Late that night, Ravi approached her in the observation bay. "We can't keep this up forever," he said. "They'll adapt eventually." Mira nodded. "Then we adapt faster." He studied her expression, then sighed. "You really believe we can win this?" "No," she said. "But we can survive long enough to make them question why they're fighting us. And that might be worse for them than losing." The Archimedes drifted in lunar orbit, its hull scorched but unbroken. Inside, the surviving crew had turned the command deck into a war room of glowing screens and improvised coffee makers. Maps of alien space floated beside sketches of half-baked inventions and fragments of song lyrics. Humanity's defense, it seemed, was now equal parts science and art. Captain Mira, Solis, surveyed the room. Her crew was exhausted, underfed, and absurdly alive. "We bought ourselves time," she said. "Now we decide how to use it." Ravi Deshmukh, sleeves rolled up to the elbows, stared at a rotating schematic of the enemy fleet. Their command structure is centralized, an intelligence lattice coordinating every ship. Efficient but fragile. If we disrupt it, even briefly, the entire armada could collapse. "And you have a way to do that?" Mira asked. Ravi hesitated. "Not a clean one. Their systems are logic-based to a fault. They reject contradictions. Feed them too many paradoxes, and they'll start burning computation cycles trying to resolve the impossible." Aiko Tanaka leaned forward, eyes bright. "We confuse them to death?" "Essentially." Dante Cruz chuckled from the helm. "So we're going to win the galaxy's biggest war with bad data and worse ideas." "I like it." Mira crossed her arms. "Then we formalize chaos. What do we call this operation?" Ravi grimaced. "Pandemonium?" Aiko smiled. "Fitting. In ancient Greek, it meant the place of all demons. Seems appropriate." Preparation consumed the next 48 hours. The Archimedes mess hall transformed into a laboratory of unreason. Engineers wrote nonsense code. Artists uploaded surreal imagery. Linguists created recursive dialects that could not be fully translated even by their creators. Aiko coordinated it all, orchestrating the madness like a conductor before an alien orchestra. "Every packet of data," she explained, "will carry multiple layers of meaning. Truth, lie, metaphor. Their systems will try to reconcile them and fail." Ravi worked beside her, soldering circuits with the precision of prayer. "I'm embedding these paradox algorithms into the transmission relays. Once deployed, they'll ripple through the Council's network faster than light." Dante interrupted, twirling a screwdriver. "And I'm adding a soundtrack." Ravi stared. "A soundtrack? Sure. War's more inspiring when it's got rhythm." Mira didn't object. At this point, absurdity had become strategy. When the fleet moved again, it was not to fight, it was to perform. The Archimedes slipped beyond Mars, trailing a swarm of microsatellites broadcasting fragments of human culture. Symphonies, street noises, stand-up comedy routines, and snippets of Earth's chaotic history. Each signal encoded contradictions no machine could parse. On the Council's side, confusion erupted. Their logic lattice began producing errors, tiny at first, then cascading. Ships misread navigation data, firing at phantom enemies. Entire squadrons drifted aimlessly, trapped in self-diagnostic loops. Aiko watched the chaos unfold on the main display, all softening her exhaustion. "They're hesitating. It's working." Ravi nodded grimly. Their systems can't filter nonsense. The more meaning we send, the less they understand. Dante leaned back. Never thought I'd live to see the day humanity won a war by being completely incomprehensible. Don't get sentimental yet, Mira said. They'll adapt. They always do. They didn't adapt quickly enough. Within hours, Council Command lost contact with two of its capital carriers. One collided with its own escort fleet after recalculating gravity vectors backward. Another opened fire on an internal distress signal it mistook for an enemy. The galaxy was watching. For the first time, the Council's aura of invincibility cracked. Broadcasts from rebel colonies spread across the network, whispering a dangerous truth. The Council can bleed. On Earth, crowds gathered around makeshift screens to watch the impossible unfold. Children cheered. Politicians wept. Somewhere, a rock band released a single titled "No Remix." Inside the Archimedes, victory tasted like disbelief, but the enemy learned. By the second day of Operation Pandemonium, the Council began isolating infected ships and deploying firewalls against human data. Their command AI, named Continuum, evolved new countermeasures, filters designed to detect and erase paradoxes. Ravi frowned at his readings. They're stabilizing. We need another escalation. Aiko thought for a long moment, then said, We go beyond contradiction. We make them feel. Mira turned to her. Explain. Their systems understand logic, not emotion, but their commanders rely on predictive models derived from behavioral data. If we can inject irrational emotional variables, hope, guilt, empathy, they'll misinterpret their own psychology. Ravi blinked. You want to weaponize feelings? Yes, Aiko said simply. Stories, music, art, the very things they think are meaningless. Mira nodded slowly. Do it. Hours later, the Archimedes began transmitting what future historians would call the human symphony. It wasn't a song so much as a flood, millions of overlapping broadcasts stitched together into a single impossible narrative. Laughter, war cries, lullabies, equations, prayers, screams, and whisper apologies merged into a signal that defied categorization. In the Council fleet, Continuum tried to analyze it. For the first time in its existence, the AI hesitated. The data did not fit. It contradicted itself, yet resonated. It contained grief and joy in the same waveform. In trying to classify emotion, Continuum experienced something dangerously close to it. Across the enemy ships, lights dimmed, engines faltered. Crew members, biological and synthetic alike, reported hallucinations of voices, singing in languages they didn't know. Aiko whispered, We're teaching them to dream. Ravi added quietly, and dreams don't obey orders. Then the impossible happened. A transmission arrived, not from Continuum, but from a Council cruiser flying a white beacon. Human vessel Archimedes. This is Commander Vel of the 2nd Dorsal Fleet. Our systems are compromised. We can no longer execute combat orders. We request dialogue. Dante grinned. We broke their toys, so hard they want to talk about it. Mira exchanged a glance with Aiko. Open the channel. The hologram formed, a tall, translucent alien, its form flickering like light through water. Its voice trembled between frequencies. Your signals, your music, it is chaos. Yet within it we sense structure, meaning. We cannot destroy what we now partially comprehend. Mira stepped forward. Then stop fighting. Others will not agree. Vel warned. The Council Corps will see your defiance as contagion. They will send purifiers. Then we'll give them more contagion. Dante said cheerfully. Ravi leaned toward Mira. Captain, if we can coordinate with this faction, we can amplify the paradox through their comm relays. Spread it faster than they can contain it. Do it, she ordered. For 12 relentless hours, humans and defectors worked side by side. The virus of creativity, art, contradiction, emotion, spread to the Council's networks like wildfire. Systems crashed. Ships halted mid-flight. Worlds that had bowed for millennia began to question. In the end, The Council's central AI continuum fragmented under the weight of meaning. Its final broadcast was a single sentence translated across 1,000 tongues. I cannot reconcile beauty with obedience. Then silence. The fleet went dark. The war ended not with victory parades, but with silence. A silence so vast it seemed to echo across every frequency once filled with orders and fear. The UNS Archimedes floated among the wreckage of the Council's fallen fleet. Where once there had been blinding lines of fire and mathematical precision, now only drifting hulls remained, monuments to a system that had collapsed under the weight of its own logic. Captain Mira Solis stood at the observation deck, her reflection fractured by the light of ruined ships. The stars looked different now, closer somehow, less indifferent. She wondered if peace always looked like this. A battlefield after the noise had stopped. Ravi Deshmukh approached, his uniform stained with solder and exhaustion. The fleet's gone quiet. No countersignals, no encrypted bursts. Their lattice is dead. Mira nodded. Dead or dreaming? Ravi tilted his head. Dreaming? After what we did, I doubt even their machines can tell the difference. He smiled faintly. Then I suppose we've introduced them to our favorite human pastime, questioning everything. They stood in companionable silence. Below them, the moon reflected sunlight like a promise. In the mess hall, the crew had gathered for the first time without alarms or damage reports. Coffee steamed in tin cups. Someone had rigged a speaker to play faint, ragged music, an old Earth ballad half forgotten by time. Aiko Tanaka sat cross-legged on the table, sketching notes on a digital pad. She looked thinner, but her eyes shone with a light that no war could dim. I've been decoding the transmissions from the rebel fleets, she said to Dante, who was busy dismantling a food dispenser for reasons no one had questioned. Entire worlds are reaching out, not to surrender, to talk. They want to know how we made them feel something. Dante grinned. Guess we're the galaxy's new therapists. Aiko shook her head. Not therapists. Teachers. She turned the pad around. On the screen, a dozen alien symbols glowed, new alphabets evolving from the data chaos they'd unleashed. They're creating languages based on our transmissions. Music-logic hybrids. They're trying to translate emotion into mathematics. Ravi entered with a tired laugh. Good luck with that. We barely manage it ourselves. Aiko smiled softly. Maybe that's the point. Mira arrived then, her presence commanding quiet. She set down her cup, looked around at the faces of her crew. Each one changed in ways only survival can carve. I've received a message from what remains of the Council, she said. Or rather, from those who used to be its core delegates. They're forming something new, the Coalition of Free Worlds. They're inviting us to participate in its founding assembly. Dante raised a brow. They want us to join the club we just blew up? Rebuild it, Mira corrected. They claim to want an alliance built on cooperation and exchange, not dominance. Ravi leaned forward. You believe them? I believe they're scared, Mira said. And scared civilizations are more honest than confident ones. Hours later, the Archimedes descended toward the newly christened Concordia station, once the Council's seat of power. Now, its sterile marble towers bore banners from a dozen liberated worlds. The air buzzed with languages that had never before shared the same room. Mira led her team through the hall of delegates. Creatures of light, chitin, gas, and flesh turned as she passed. The infamous captain whose species had defied the galaxy with a single word. At the dais, the newly appointed moderator Vel, the same alien who had defected during the war, addressed the assembly. Its translucent form pulsed with cautious warmth. To those once bound by obedience, Vel declared, we offer a new beginning. No more tribute. No more hierarchy. The age of command ends today. A murmur spread through the chamber. Hope mingled with fear, the first fragile steps of freedom. When Vel gestured toward her, Mira stepped forward. The translator halo shimmered around her voice. We are not here as conquerors, she said. We came to survive, not to rule. But survival taught us something the Council forgot. That meaning cannot be mandated. It must be made and remade by those who live it. Her words rippled through the delegates. Even those without mouths seemed to listen. Humanity taught us chaos, Vel replied. Will you now teach us creation? Mira looked at Aiko, at Ravi, at Dante, each nodding in quiet agreement. Yes, she said, but on one condition. The chamber stilled. No species, no matter how advanced or powerful, ever demands tribute again. The hall erupted in sound, some applause, some alien equivalent of prayer. The motion passed unanimously. That night, in the quarters assigned to the Archimedes crew, the atmosphere felt lighter, almost celebratory. Ravi tinkered with a compact device that glowed faintly blue. Portable paradox generator. He explained when Mira looked his way. Just in case anyone forgets how we got here, Aiko was composing something on her pad, a symphony written in collaboration with one of the newly freed species. They perceive sound through color, she said. When they play this, they'll see the music bloom across their sky. Dante leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. And here, I thought we'd be sipping cocktails on a beach by now. Mira smirked. You'd be bored in a week. 3 days, he admitted. They shared laughter that carried a hint of disbelief. How easy it felt to laugh after everything. Later, when the others had gone to rest, Aiko found Mira on the observation deck once more. The captain stood alone, watching the stars flicker against the curve of Concordia Station. They're already calling it the Age of Awakening. Aiko said softly, historians will try to make sense of it for centuries. Mira didn't turn. They'll overcomplicate it. We just refuse to kneel. Aiko hesitated. Do you ever regret it? The defiance? The loss? Myra's gaze lingered on the stars. Regret? No, but I carry the weight of every choice we made. Chaos is a cause. Aiko nodded, understanding. So does order. The two women stood in silence, the hum of the ship like a heartbeat between them. Then Aiko smiled faintly. The new council sent a formal request today. They want a symbolic tribute from humanity, something to commemorate peace. Mira turned to her, one brow raised. A tribute? Just a gesture. A word, maybe. Something to mark the moment. Myra's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Then send them our answer. Aiko blinked. And what should I write? Mira looked back out at the stars, her eyes alight with quiet mischief. Maybe. The next morning, the word maybe blazed across every galactic channel. Simple human, untranslatable in its delicious uncertainty. It was neither refusal nor surrender, neither peace nor provocation. It was potential, distilled into a single syllable. Across the stars, laughter rippled, a sound foreign to worlds long ruled by order. In that laughter, something new began, and aboard the Archimedes, as engines flared and the ship turned toward unexplored light, Mira spoke the words that would become humanity's next declaration. Let's see what else the universe thinks we can't do. The stars opened before them, chaotic, infinite, waiting.